Welcome to the channel. This is a place where we explore knowledge, improve ourselves, and learn something new every single day. Whether you're here to gain skills, discover ideas, or grow personally, you're in the right spot. Make sure to subscribe so we can learn and grow together.
It was a Tuesday night, and I was sitting at my home office desk finishing up the last of a code review when my phone buzzed with a notification from our smart home app. My wife had set up the system 2 years ago. Cameras at the front door, the garage, the backyard. I never paid much attention to it. That night, I was bored waiting for a file to compile, so I opened the app and started scrubbing through the day's footage out of nothing more than habit. That was the moment my entire life cracked open. The timestamp read 2047 p.m. My wife's car was in the driveway, which made sense. She had told me she was working from home that afternoon. But the man walking through our front door behind her was not a delivery driver. He was not a repairman. He was her colleague, a guy named Derek, who I had met exactly 3 times at company parties. He walked in like he owned the place. She laughed at something he said and let the door close behind them. The camera inside the entryway showed them together for 4 seconds before they moved out of frame. 4 seconds was enough. I sat very still for a long time. The compile finished. I did not notice. My name is James. I am 41 years old. I work as a senior software engineer for a defense contractor in the Chicago area. My wife of 12 years, is Rachel. She is a project manager at a mid-sized consulting firm downtown, the kind of company that sends its people to client sites in Seattle, Dallas, New York, wherever the work takes them. We have a son named Owen. He is 11 years old and obsessed with baseball and building things with his hands. He is the best thing either of us has ever done. I want to tell you how Rachel and I started, because it matters for understanding how much I lost that Tuesday night. We met in our late 20s at a mutual friend's housewarming party in Evanston. I was standing by the kitchen island pretending to read the label on a craft beer bottle because I did not know many people there. She walked over, took the bottle out of my hand, checked the label herself, and said, "This one's actually good. You have decent taste for someone standing alone in a corner." I told her I was not standing in a corner. I was standing adjacent to a corner, which was completely different. She laughed. That was it for me. We dated for 2 years before I proposed. We bought a house in a suburb north of the city, a 3-bedroom colonial with a yard big enough for Owen to throw a ball around in. We were not a flashy couple. We did not take extravagant vacations or post our lives on social media. We had dinner together most nights, helped Owen with homework, watched television on the couch. It was a quiet life and I loved it completely. I want to be honest about the year leading up to that Tuesday night. Things between Rachel and me had grown quieter in a way that felt different from comfortable. We were both busy. Owen's school schedule, her travel schedule, my project deadlines. We stopped checking in with each other the way we used to. I noticed it, but told myself it was just a season, that things would settle down once her big Q3 client rollout was done. I was wrong about what was actually happening. I sat at my desk for 2 hours after seeing that footage. I did not confront her. I did not call anyone. I went back through 4 weeks of camera logs. Derek had been to our house on 3 separate occasions when I was at the office. Each time his car was gone before I came home. She had been careful. Not careful enough, but careful. When Rachel came downstairs that evening to ask what I wanted for dinner, I looked at her face and felt something go cold and flat inside me. I said I was not hungry. She said I looked tired and suggested I go to bed early. I said I probably would. She went back to the kitchen and I sat there thinking about 12 years and a son named Owen and a woman I thought I knew down to the bone. The next morning I called in sick to work. After Rachel left and Owen was on the school bus, I sat at the kitchen table and made a list of what I actually knew versus what I was assuming. I am an engineer. I make lists. What I knew: Derek had been in my house 3 times in 4 weeks during hours when I was not home. What I did not know: anything beyond that. I told myself I needed to be certain before I did anything I could not take back. I called a private investigator that afternoon, a woman named Sandra, who came highly recommended by a divorce attorney I found through a discreet internet search. I want to say that hiring a private investigator felt dramatic and strange, like something out of a movie. It did not. It felt like the most rational thing I had done in days. I met Sandra at a coffee shop 2 towns over and told her what I had seen. She asked me direct, practical questions. How often did my wife travel for work? Did she have any upcoming trips? What were her typical hours? I answered everything. We agreed on a retainer. She told me she would have something for me within 2 weeks. It took 8 days. Rachel had a 2-day client visit scheduled in Milwaukee. She drove up on a Wednesday morning and was supposed to return Thursday evening. Sandra called me Thursday afternoon. She sent me a file of photographs and a short video clip. Derek had driven to Milwaukee on Wednesday night. He and Rachel had dinner at a restaurant near her hotel. They walked back together. He did not leave until the following morning. I pulled over on the side of a road near my office and sat with my hazard lights blinking for 20 minutes. I looked at the photographs. Then I turned them face down on the passenger seat and drove home. That night I put Owen to bed early, which he complained about, and I sat in the basement on the old couch we kept down there. And I let myself feel the full weight of it for the first time. I had been holding it at arm's length for 8 days, treating it like a problem to be solved rather than something that was destroying me. Down in that basement, I was not an engineer. I was just a man who had loved his wife for 12 years and found out she had made him into a fool. I did not cry for long. Then I made another list. I want to address something before I continue, because I know what some people think when they hear about a man who responds to betrayal with planning rather than confrontation. They think it is cold. They think it is about pride or ego. It was not. I did not plan carefully because I wanted revenge in some cinematic sense. I planned carefully because I had a son to protect. Every decision I made after that basement night was made through the filter of what was best for Owen. That is the only thing that kept me functioning. I contacted a family law attorney named Patricia Howe, a partner at a firm in the city. Our first meeting was on a Friday morning. She was in her early 50s, direct and unhurried, the kind of person who has seen everything and is not surprised by any of it. I walked her through what I had, including the camera footage and Sandra's report and photographs. She looked through everything carefully, and then she looked at me. "This is solid documentation," she said. "Illinois is a no-fault divorce state, so the evidence of infidelity won't directly determine outcome, but it will matter in the full picture of the marriage. Tell me about your son." We talked for 90 minutes about Owen, about the house, about our finances, about my role as a parent. I worked from home 3 days a week. I was the one who took Owen to school and picked him up more often than not. I coached his Little League team in the spring. Patricia made notes. She told me that the custody arrangement was the most important thing to get right, and that my involvement in Owen's daily life was documented and real, and that it would matter. I asked her how long before we could file. She told me there was no reason to rush, that I should make sure I had everything in order first. She also told me, gently but directly, that I should not tell Rachel what I knew until I was ready to serve her. I told her I understood. That was the hardest part. Living in the house for 3 weeks, knowing what I knew. Eating dinner. Asking about her day. Watching her be normal. There were moments when I wondered if I was the one who had lost his mind. If somehow I had invented the meaning of what I had seen, then I would remember Sandra's photographs and I knew I had not invented anything. I also did the DNA test during those 3 weeks. I want to be straightforward about this. I know it seems like a betrayal about this. I know it seems like a betrayal of its own kind, testing your son without his knowledge. But I had to know. I ordered a home kit online, collected the samples quietly, sent everything to the lab. The results came back in 10 days. Owen is my son. I sat in my car in the parking garage at my office and held that paper and felt something I cannot fully describe. Relief and grief braided together so tightly I could not separate them. Relief because he was mine. Grief because even the fact that I had needed to ask the question meant that everything had already changed. 2 days before I was ready to have Rachel served, I drove to my parents' house. My father, a retired electrician named Gerald, is 68 years old and one of the steadiest people I have ever known. My mother, Diane, cried when I told her. My father did not. He sat with his hands on the kitchen table and listened to every word, and when I was finished, he said, "What do you need from us?" I told him I needed them to take Owen for the weekend when everything happened. I did not want my son in the house when his mother was served. I did not want him to come home from school to a situation he could not understand. My father said they would take Owen fishing up at the lake house. He said they would tell him it was a spontaneous trip. My mother reached across the table and took my hand and did not say anything, which was exactly right. I also did something that I have gone back and forth on in the months since. I am not going to pretend it was clean or entirely fair. The day before the papers were served, I forwarded Sandra's full report, the photographs, the dates, the documentation, to Rachel's mother, Linda, and to her older brother, Scott. Not to humiliate Rachel publicly. Not to burn her life down for sport. I did it because I knew that in the days after service, Rachel would go to her family, and she would frame things in whatever way made her most sympathetic, and her mother and brother would form opinions based only on what she told them. I wanted them to have the facts first. I wanted to be the one who told the truth, even if the telling was painful. Linda called me an hour after I sent the email. She was crying and could barely form sentences. I told her I was sorry and I meant it. She had always treated me like a son. She asked if there was any chance, any at all, of working through it. I told her there was not. She did not argue with me. Scott texted me 2 words, "I'm sorry." That was all. I respected him for not pretending. Rachel was served on a Thursday afternoon. Sandra coordinated with Patricia's office. I was not home. I had gone to pick Owen up from school and taken him to my parents' house early, telling him Grandpa had a new fishing rod and wanted to show him before the weekend. He was delighted. Kids are so easy to delight at 11, and I was grateful for it. When I came home, Rachel was sitting at the kitchen table with the papers in front of her. She had been crying. When I walked in, she looked at me and said, "How long have you known?" I said, "Long enough." She said she was sorry. She said it had been going on for about 4 months and that it had meant nothing, which is a thing people say and which I do not believe anyone has ever meant. I told her I did not want to have this conversation in the kitchen, that if she had things to say, she could say them through attorneys. She said she did not want to lose our family. I told her the family was not lost, that Owen would have 2 parents who loved him, that I would make sure of that. I told her the marriage was over. She said, "Is this about your ego, James? Is this just pride?" I had expected something like this. I looked at her for a moment before I answered. "It is not about my ego," I said. "It is about the fact that I will spend the rest of my life wondering, every time you leave the house, every time your phone buzzes, every time you seem distracted. I will never stop wondering. I cannot live like that, and I will not ask Owen to grow up in a house that feels like that. This is not about pride. This is about what I know about myself." She did not have an answer for that. She left that evening and went to her mother's house. The weeks that followed were not simple. Rachel and I agreed on a co-parenting arrangement before we went to mediation, which the attorney said was unusual and useful. We both wanted Owen to be okay. That turned out to be the one thing we still wanted in exactly the same way, and it was enough to keep us civil. We agreed that Owen would live primarily with me. Rachel would have him every other weekend, 2 weeks in the summer, and alternating holidays. We told Owen together, sitting in the living room on a Sunday afternoon. He was quiet for a long time. Then he asked if he could still see both sets of grandparents. We told him, of course. He cried a little. We both held him. It was the worst and most necessary hour of my life. Derek, I should mention, was gone from Rachel's office within a month. I do not know the details. I did not ask. I heard from Linda that Rachel had ended things with him almost immediately after being served, which did not surprise me. That is often how these things go. The affair is its own strange weather system that evaporates the moment it is forced into ordinary air. Owen adjusted better than I feared and worse than I hoped, which I think is about as much as any parent can ask for in a situation like this. He had a few weeks of being withdrawn and quiet. His teacher sent me an email. I met with the school counselor. We all kept an eye on him. By spring, he was back to himself, coaching younger kids at the batting cages on Saturday mornings, talking my ear off about some video game I could not follow. He is resilient in a way that makes me proud of him every single day. What I want to say about myself is this. I did not move on quickly, and I do not think I was supposed to. Rachel and I had 12 good years before the last one. That is real. I carry it. Some mornings I wake up and for just a few seconds the weight of what was lost lands on me fresh and full, and then I get up and make Owen's lunch and drive him to school and the day begins and I keep going. I've got out a few times over the past year, dinners with friends, once a setup from a woman at my office. Nothing serious. I am not sure I am ready for anything serious, and I have decided to stop pretending I know the timeline on that. The thing about trust is that once you understand it can be taken away without warning, you never fully stop knowing that. You do not become a person who cannot trust. You become a person who knows that trust is a choice you make every day, not a permanent condition. I think that is actually a more honest way to live. It is also lonelier than the way I used to live, and I am still getting used to that. There's one more thing I want to tell you, and it is the part of this story that I did not expect. About 8 months after the divorce was finalized, my father called me on a Sunday evening. He asked me to come over, just me. When I got there, my mother was in the kitchen giving us space, which meant whatever this was, he had told her already. We sat at the kitchen table, the same place where I had told them everything. My father folded his hands and looked at me and said, There is something I should have told you sooner. I am telling you now because I think you deserve to know, and because I have been carrying it long enough." He told me that 8 months before Rachel was served, more than 4 months before I had seen anything on the home camera, he had run into Derek at a gas station 2 towns over. My father did not know Derek well, had only met him once or twice at work events, but he recognized him. Derek was on his phone, loud, standing at the pump, and my father overheard enough to understand what was happening. He did not hear my wife's name. He did not hear my wife's name. He did not hear anything he could call a fact. But he had a feeling, he said, the kind of feeling that becomes a certainty before you have the words for it. He said he almost called me that night. He went back and forth for a week. Then he decided he could not destroy my marriage on a feeling and an overheard conversation. He said he watched me for months after that. He came to Owen's baseball games and watched my face and tried to determine whether I was a man who already knew or a man who did not. He said I seemed happy. He decided he must have been wrong. I sat with this for a long time. I am not going to pretend I was not angry. I was. I asked him why he was telling me now, 8 months after the fact, when it could not change anything. He said because he had not slept well since the day I came to his kitchen and told him what I had found. He said he needed me to know that he had tried to protect me, even if he had made the wrong call. He said he was sorry. My father is not a man who apologizes easily. Watching him do it cost him something. I could see it. I told him I needed some time with it. I drove home and sat in the dark in my car in the driveway for a while, thinking about the 8 months I might have saved myself if he had called me. Then I thought about Owen. I thought about the fishing trip and the baseball games and the Sunday nights when my father had shown up unannounced with takeout just to keep me company when Owen was at his mother's. I thought about the man he had been to me my entire life. The anger did not go away, but had sat down next to something larger, and the larger thing was this. He is my father, and he was trying to protect me the only way he knew how, and he got it wrong, and he told me the truth about it. Most people cannot even manage the last part. I called him the next morning. I told him I was angry and that it was going to take me some time to work through it. I told him I loved him. He said the same. We did not say much else. Some conversations do their work in the white space between the words. Owen is doing well. I am doing well enough. The house still feels large in the evenings, but I have started cooking more, which Owen finds alternately impressive and suspicious. Last weekend he told me my pasta was almost as good as a restaurant. From an 11-year-old, I will take it. I do not know what the next chapter looks like. I know that I will be a good father. I know that I will be honest with the people I love. I know that I will not pretend to be over something I am not over or rush myself into a life that does not fit because it seems like the right timeline. I know that trust is a daily choice, and I intend to keep making it. That is enough for now. There is a principle that runs through every story like this, and it is not complicated even though it is painful to sit with. What we do in private eventually finds its way into the light. Not always quickly, not always dramatically, but consistently, in the way that water always finds the lowest point. Rachel believed she was living in 2 separate worlds, the one with James and Owen and the house with the good yard, and the one she had constructed in hotel rooms and borrowed afternoons. What she did not understand is that those 2 worlds were never actually separate. They were always the same world, and she was always the same person moving through it. James understood something that a lot of people in pain resist understanding. He understood that the quality of his response would determine the quality of what came next. He did not act on rage. He did not make noise. He built his case carefully, protected his son first, and told the truth when it was time to tell it. That is not coldness. That is character under pressure, which is the only place character is ever actually tested. The DNA test is the part of this story that some people find troubling. I do not. When trust is broken at that level, every question becomes legitimate, even the ones that hurt to ask. James asked the question, got his answer, and carried it without using it as a weapon. Owen is his son. He always was. But James needed to know, and knowing gave him the clarity to move forward rather than spend years in quiet doubt. There is no nobility in refusing to seek the truth when the truth is knowable. What Rachel lost was not simply a marriage. She lost the version of herself that she had been when she was trusted completely. That version does not come back. A person can rebuild after betrayal, can grow into someone wiser and more honest. But the specific thing that existed before, that particular trust, that particular safety, is gone for good. The consequences of choices do not negotiate. They simply arrive. For James, the grief is real and ongoing, and I think that is worth saying plainly. He did not stop loving Rachel the moment he found the footage. Love is not a switch. He grieved the marriage even while he was ending it, which is a harder thing to do than most people realize. Holding grief and resolve at the same time without letting either one collapse the other requires a kind of quiet strength that does not get enough acknowledgement. What I hope anyone listening takes from this story is not simply that cheating has consequences, because that is the smallest possible lesson. The larger one is this. The life you build is built from daily choices, most of them invisible and unremarkable, and the integrity of the whole structure depends on the integrity of those small moments. James chose to be present for his son. He chose honesty with his attorney, with his parents, with himself. Those choices, accumulated over time, became the foundation he was able to stand on when everything else fell away. Owen is doing well. That is not an accident. It is the direct result of a father who decided in his worst moment that his child's stability mattered more than his own pain. That decision is the one that will echo longest.